everyone. Hope you're doing well. It's just me, Kris, your Cardvoyant. And today I just wanted to jump back on and um, talk about a few things because, here we are. Here we still are. So I wanted to discuss just kind of what's going on and also to speak about it with my guides, through my guides to you. And I also feel like there are certain guides who I would call like masters, spiritual masters on the other side, who are particularly cognizant. I mean, the word I want to kind of say is in charge of, but who are particularly involved in the situation that we're in now. So, I'm hoping that they will be able to speak to me and speak through me and through the cards so that we can talk about a little bit about this and sort of ease our own anxiety. I did want to mention right before I start with the cards, I'm just going to do a very short reading. I've done a number of readings this week, and people have been lovely. People are lovely. It's just great. And even in these tough times, or especially in these tough times when I do a reading, it's just uplifting, I think, to me and hopefully to the person I'm reading for as well. But I did want to say that I'm going to open up some readings that are only half an hour. Generally, I only do like an hour. That's just a standard about what a reading with me lasts. So, but I am going to do that 30 minutes because it's about, I figured it would just be like half the price. And hopefully if you're feeling that you would like a reading, but an hour seemed, not quite as doable financially, then maybe this would be helpful to some people. That having been said, if you have an hour reading with me scheduled and you would like to switch to a half an hour, that is fine, and we can make that switch and we can refund the difference. And this will be regular readings and past life readings, whatever you would like. So that should be up and running on the website now. So that having been said, what I'd like to do is just a very short, maybe 2 or 3 card readings. We'll see what comes up. And just, kind of what do we need to know? What would it help us to know? What would it be good for us to know right now concerning the worldwide situation, the pandemic, obviously, but also governmental structures and just, there's just so many questions that we have that I know that our guides, your guides, my guides, these master guides are cognizant of. They know the fears that we're having and the things that we're, thinking about daily, hourly, by the minute. I did ask, and I will ask again as I shuffle the cards, specifically about sort of like a timeline, but I have no idea if that's something that they can do, are willing to do, or, or just are able to do for us at this time. But I did ask because, of course, that's kind of like utmost on our mind, especially, as we sit here sheltering in place, being quarantined, however it is, it's difficult on so many levels. Also good on a few levels that I think we'll talk about. But let me shuffle now, see the kind of reading that we come up with and the cards that we come up with. I will go ahead and probably edit this down because it does take me, as I've said, a bit to shuffle. So let me do that now. So as you can see, I've only put down 2 cards. And when I was shuffling, and I often do this, I'm like, should I put down more or should I put down more? But I've only put down these 2. So I just wanted to mention that before I turn them over, and let's see what we've got. Well, talk about interesting cards and also cards that I didn't expect. Both Cups cards, which is perhaps the best thing that we want to hear, right? Because they're all about love and companionship and family, all those good emotions. And look at this first card, the Six of Cups. And this is a card that's very sweet. It's now this is talking about the ways in which we turn to each other in this particular case, and the ways in which we turn to family. Right? I mean, um, I don't want to say forced. We're having the opportunity to turn to family. And it's funny because what's happening now with parents of small children, but parents of any kind. I mean, I don't have small children anymore, but I'm still a parent. I still have kids, and this turning inward, this turning to each other that we're going through right now, a lot of it involves our own nostalgia, whatever that means to you. The ways that you were brought up, maybe returning to that, maybe having the family dinners, maybe, family game night or whatever it is. And if you didn't grow up that way, if your childhood was far from ideal, it's turning to an ideal in your mind. I mean, this is a very nostalgic picture, and sometimes the pictures that are nostalgic to us are sometimes like TV shows. If you're my generation, it might be the Brady Bunch. If it was a further generation, there may be some other kind of idealized family or just loving relationship that you've seen in movies or television, and now is your chance to sort of recreate that. And that's what this card is not only asking us to do, but showing us that we have the opportunity to do. And that's really a marvelous thing. And part of the thing that I was have had in my mind also, especially as I was like meditating today, is this idea of our own personal power. Um, you know, a lot of what's happened in the world over the past many decades, since World War II. Because in World War II, there was this sense of, during the war, this sense of, first of all, a common goal, a common purpose, and yet people contributed individually. So there's this sense of purpose as a whole, but also as personal power, our personal importance, the role that we play within the whole. And now as we're forced into isolation, we have this chance to reconnect with and rediscover and appreciate our own personal power. Because as I was going to say, that since this time, since World War II, we have strayed so far from that. We've gone further and further and further away from that sense of personal power and the sense of our importance, our own personal importance as a member of the whole. And these, especially the past, oh my gosh, just even the past 10 years, but as I said, since World War II, this feeling of powerlessness it's devastated our own psyches, but you can see what it's done within our societal structure. As we've felt more and more powerless, we've allowed power to be seized by people who are seizing power for power itself, with not a means to an end, not an end, I would say. Okay, let me rephrase this. The only end that they have in mind is personal gain. There's not a common good end that we've had many times in history, and not necessarily consistently, but many times. And when you have like a concentration of that understanding of personal power and personal integrity and personal importance as far as being a member of the group that has a common goal, when you have that, it brings a cohesiveness and a peacefulness eventually, and a brightness, like a higher vibration, good things to the planet. And as we have given up this power, and as we feel more powerless, it grows, exponentially. Every time you sort of feel yourself losing some personal power, it tends to grow. We sort of fester in it, wallow in it, and it just gets worse and worse and worse until it cannot be borne anymore, because it's too heavy for us. It's too heavy of a burden for us because it's not our natural state. We are in charge of our lives. We are all endowed with personal power. We, as so many, spiritual leaders acknowledge and say and try and instill in us, we create our own reality with our thoughts and our actions. And so it's probably the worst possible outcome or downward spiral to have us each feeling that we're losing our own personal power, that we are powerless. Now, so often when people feel powerless, it turns into violence. The reaction to it is violence. In our society, when people feel powerless, they try to exert their power in some way, just in a desperate attempt to reclaim their personal power. So, when you see this in areas that are very poverty-stricken, or in areas where there's this, oppressive governments, where you have these uprisings of people trying to seize power. You can see this in individual dynamics in families, when people who have been downtrodden and trod upon in their whole lives become violent, because it's a way to exert and express this personal power. Now, we've done this time and time and again. Individuals have done this time and time again. Many of our most damaged individuals feel keenly this sense of powerlessness in all of its morphed forms. And so they become, these sort of tyrannical figures. And often we see that exploding into war because of individuals and groups of individuals who feel this powerlessness. Now, here in this situation, we have this massive worldwide global experience that is this pandemic, that is a form of violence. And then all these various government uprisings and shiftings, and just negative and difficult and challenging and oppressive and mean-spirited situations. And you have it on all these different levels. You have it in business. You can see that playing out right now in the ways that so many businesses are not responding in a way that speaks to our goal as a whole, as humanity is valued. It's just playing out in all these ways. And so it's not a war, because it's bigger than that. It's bigger than any single war could force change, right? There's all these things happening at once. And at the heart of it is this pandemic. And it is, as I said, this is the expression of sort of the frustration, and it is a violence in a way against humanity, but it's also our own expression, the explosion of our frustration at feeling this powerlessness. So let's look at this card, because this is a really interesting card, this Seven of Cups. This honestly is a card that I rarely get. It's for quite unique situations. And you can see this figure looking at the Seven Cups, and the cups are all full of all these, different weird things. Some of them desirable, some of them not. And it's this idea of not quite seeing what's truly there. It's the idea of illusions, sometimes deluding ourselves. And it's the idea of false promises, okay? So you can see already, without me saying much, how this would relate to the current situation, especially the false promises part. But it's also the idea of looking in places, um, looking for help and wisdom in the wrong places and from the wrong people. The 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 thing that you can trust, the person that you can trust the most, is yourself. You have certainly the ability and the right to connect with your spirit guides, connect with your higher self. Think, simply think what feels right and what feels wrong. And again, the idea of false promises is usually that it's this kind of pie in the sky idea. And so that's a good way to recognize when things, when things seem way too good to be true, they probably are. So there's that, but it's just overall this idea of the way that we have been deluded these past, couple of decades, the way that we've let people lead us astray because we haven't been willing to look deeply. And as we begin to feel more and more powerless, we've just stepped back. We've sort of abdicated our responsibility, and unfortunately we've abdicated it to several people who are out for themselves, who are rather tyrannical, who are uninformed, who don't care, and who actually, as we're all gathering together and seeing ourselves as a group, as humanity, humankind, there's this group of people that we have sort of put too much trust in some cases, and too much power in, and given too much power to in all cases, who see themselves as standing aside from the group. They don't want to be in the group. They want to be above the group, right? They have this idea of the universe or the world as like this, like a mountain. And like the best thing for them that they think is to be at the top of this mountain, and they just want to push everybody else off the side. They want to be number one. Now, we've fostered this for a long time, for you know, for better and worse, but this idea of life as a competition sees it like this. It sees it like this pyramid where you have to be at the top, the best, number one. And so there's all these people. That's why they try to accumulate wealth. That's why they, massive amounts of wealth, and why they also try to obtain positions of power, just to be this top of the heap, top of the hill, where they can kick everyone else down. But this is one of those things that is a belief, and in these people, it's a very, it's a false belief, obviously, but it's more than that. It's just so misconstrued. It's just so, everything is so muddled in their minds that it's just, they cannot see the truth of the world, of the universe. And that is that it's a plane, right? We're all equal. We're all part of the divine. And not only that, there's room for everybody. There's room for everybody to be doing well, to be supported, to share in this humanity, this spark of the divine that is within all of us. So, what this card now is calling on us to do is to recognize that, and to sort ourselves out from it, to demand that the truth be seen, that we move away from this and move back to this loving, sharing, faithful relationship, to allow humanity to not only progress, or I should say, to not only exist, but to progress. So there's the big, the big message. In our isolation, we are discovering our own personal power. And when we come back together, we will be better equipped and better able to understand that not only do I have personal power, but you do as well, and it's equal in scope, in measure, in ability. Okay. Okay, a couple of things. One is I feel like now we're in the thick of it. Um, because I did ask about timeline, and it just feels like sort of an easing into the place where it's either the peak or the bottom, however you want to look at it, and we are almost there. Not quite. It's going to get a little worse before it gets better. Um, there are there are so many people leaving, and what I saw is this idea of people leaving and rising up, which is sort of metaphorical, but this rising up to the non-spiritual world where they can, and then immediately turning to look down on the planet to help from that space, understanding the situation so immediately because they've been here and involved in this. They leave en masse and immediately turn around to look back and help. They have even a better ability to do that from there. There's also this idea of, coupled with that, and in particular instances more, of making a statement by leaving. I do feel like, and I felt this for, I've just been thinking about it a lot the past few days, this feeling that there's going to be several like high profile people who leave, um, who who transition to the other side, and they're leaving as both a statement and an ability for them to help as well. But it is going to be that thing where it's kind of like, no, not them, no, not that person. And it's just, it again, it drives us inward to understand that the only way that this can change truly, and so many people have talked about how we're ushering in sort of a new shift in the way that the world is going to operate. The one way that we can do that, and then we have to do that, is by understanding our own personal power and removing from power the people, the institutions, the corporations, the ideas, the false beliefs that are keeping us feeling powerless. We have to reexert our power and say no more. And that's the bigger picture, and that's some of the things that we're actually gaining through our own isolation, which I know is so difficult. And for so many people, it's extremely difficult. We're all feeling it. It's like, I like to stay home and watch movies or watch TV or something, but when you know that you can't do something else, it suddenly loses some of its appeal. But we're all feeling it. But some people, it's these feel like very desperate times, and it's a very difficult situation. And thank goodness that we have this technology and ways to reach out to one another, even if it's just a text that says, how are you doing? How are you coping? Do you want to talk on the phone? Do you want to FaceTime? So there, we do have that capability, thank goodness. But it is a matter of us gaining our voice in a lot of ways. These videos that we've seen and so much music and things like that, and even people like reading things or doing, little like soliloquies and things like that. It's very cool. But those things actually are a way to exercise our voice and understand the power of our own voice individually and collectively. So we're not quite to the deepest part of it, or I would say deepest part rather than pinnacle, but we're not quite at the worst of it, but we're close. We're within a couple of weeks of it, I feel like. And then we're gonna see things start to improve. There are some brilliant minds out there. There are some brilliant minds, and I'll tell you, I feel like it's coming from all over the world, and in a way that will help us appreciate how we're all human and how we're all equal and we all have a common cause. And that might be literally from helped by some of the places that this information comes from. And I'm talking about treatments and eventual cure, or maybe vaccine is a better word, um, and actually teamwork. Like when you think of like a pandemic team, and then when this, if it does, and it will, and it's the way humanity works. When this sort of reoccurs, not this particular virus, but other things like this come up, like we've seen with like Ebola or SARS, or these sort of um, bad uh, pandemics, but we had no idea that they could be so much worse. As we've seen those things like that will crop up every now and again. Nothing on this scale for hopefully ever again, but depends on what we do as a human race. But the point is that because of what happens, because of this, it's like a global team. Sometimes I get pictures in my head, and what I'm seeing is Captain Planet. Do you remember that show, Captain Planet? But it's that idea of this teamwork to literally save the globe and to save humanity and to bring us back to a more natural state as far as our own abilities, our own personal and united power, and our own desire and ability to move everything closer to the non-physical world, to raise our vibration as a planet, right? So this is going to be a group effort necessarily to teach us that we are all one, but I do feel like it's coming, and it in a way it trickles in. Um, um, because we do have to begin this ability of sharing different knowledge and understanding. And I feel, it's like, I mentioned Vietnam before, but it does feel that area. I do think maybe something now feels more like there may be some information, some knowledge, some research and stuff coming out of India, Germany, and just the even further north, like the Netherlands, that kind of area, the U.S., Cuba. There are doctors in places and researchers in places like Brazil. I mean, there's just, it's worldwide. The influence, the pandemic, the fear, the death is worldwide, and so we have this worldwide effort that's going to make us appreciate that we are one world, one humanity, one people. And there will be in the years and the decades to come these many structural changes, I believe. And yes, I mean that's what we're working toward. That's what I feel like my guides want me to say. That's what we're working for. That's what this is about. So we all have the ability to speak to our guides, and you don't have to necessarily think, I didn't get the message from you. What do you specifically want to say to me? But it is that feeling of in meditation, in prayer, in quiet moments, in, if you're able to, take a walk, do anything that gives you that still quiet moment when you're just able to calm this human mind of fear, especially fear right now, and just try to connect. Imagine yourself breathing in white light. I try to imagine myself breathing in white and blue light, because I feel like blue light, to me, that's kind of like healing. So breathe it in, and then as I breathe it out, like I'm pushing out all the negative energy, and then breathe back in the light. This is something you can do with your family as well. Don't think of any of your children are too small to do this. Don't think any of your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents are too old to do this. This connection raises our vibration. There are a lot of different groups and people that are doing, like online meditations and stuff like that. It's fantastic. All of that kind of stuff is fantastic. Connect with that, because we are all connected, and we can bring about, by doing that, we can bring about these good things as we raise our feeling of the idea of our own personal power, of our own family power, as our own community power, as our own planetary humanity power, as our own spark of the divine, we will bring this about sooner. We will bring change about sooner. We will literally raise our vibration that helps these inspired researchers and medical personnel and all these brilliant people who are so focused on this will be inspired even faster. And all of this change is taking place, will take place faster. Until that time, as I said, we're going to be going through stuff, but we've got each other. We've got this amazing community right here on this YouTube channel, but just we have all these many communities that we're a part of. So take advantage of them, enjoy them, love them, be a part of them as much as you can. Take a break by yourself when you need to. This will pass, but it's going to more than pass, because passing, it just makes it seem so passive. And this is not a passive thing that's happening. This is us forcing change, making things happen. So it's not so much that it's a passing, it's that we will work our way out of this. We will force ourselves into a beautiful, better world. So as we all go through this, keep in touch. I will try and do more of this. I know I've got a couple more videos to do that are just the teaching videos. Let me know if there's anything that you guys want to talk about. As I mentioned about the readings, those are available as well. But hopefully we can just stay close to each other, take care of each other, and bring about all the good things that are possible. So until next time, I'm Kris and I'm your Cardvoyant. Bye.